Lately, I've been trying extra hard to play the games casually collecting dust on my shelves for who knows how long. Most recently, I decided to play Tales of the Abyss. I went into this really hoping I'd fall head over heels, and for about 45 hours, I'd say that mission was accomplished. But then around the 50-hour mark, it started to feel way too long and repetitive. I originally wanted to make a video about why the game holds up, how the narrative is engaging, and how the characters and world are impressively well realized. But the game just felt too long. I'm not even the type of person who usually says that, especially because I played those 40 hours within 6 or so days. The story started to prolong itself when I felt that it could have ended shortly after Ash and the group find out about the true motives of Van Grants. I enjoyed the payoff of Luke gaining the trust of his allies back, but they diddle-daddle running from here to there for what seemed to be 20 or so more hours of game time. I just couldn't do it, and a big part of that was because I felt like I never truly grasped the battle system. Even when they explained it like 10 times. It didn't quite handle like the monotonous battle system we're going to get into in the next game, but it also never felt like it evolved or that I necessarily got better at it. Kudos to them for letting you play as multiple characters though. That did help me get through a bit easier. I also have to positively add that each area looked so beautiful, with music that soothed you right into the atmosphere. It was awing at times. All in all, I wish I loved Abyss, especially with it being my first game of the series, but I'm gonna have to settle with possibly coming back to it another time, or just looking up the ending. So here's a tough one for me, because I know the entire series is a favorite of so many people I know personally. But Kingdom Hearts, literally all of it, just is not for me. I was around when the PS2 game came out, and my oldest cousin was addicted, so I got to see him play through it pretty much all the time. The Disney aesthetic was a big hit for that side of the family. They're definitely Disney aficionados. The Final Fantasy part left me curious, but at the time, I had only picked up Final Fantasy XII from a Micro Center, and I hated it at that age. So the only reason I had to go play it was out of curiosity, and to fit in with my cousin, which never even worked. So after I saw my family one day, I stopped off at a now-defunct disc replay, and asked for my dad to pick me up a fairly expensive used copy of the HD collection. This had to be around 2014, maybe earlier. And so I sat in my room, locked to the screen for about 30 minutes, stuck in Destiny Island before saying, ugh, and not picking up the game for a month. When I came back, I remember playing through that second area, Traverse Town, and really vibing with the music and the new characters. But it is way easier to get lost there than I had the patience for. And I think that once again, I dropped it. And that time, I didn't come back. Instead, I attempted to watch 358 over 2 days and couldn't get through more than an hour. When I was about 20 and going to art school, I decided to roll it back to Kingdom Hearts. Specifically because I pre-ordered Kingdom Hearts 3 for whatever nostalgia-coded reason. I played and played until I got past that Ursula fight, which I actually found difficult since I never knew what I was doing. I had decently enjoyed my stay in the world up to that, but again, I just fell off. Kingdom Hearts has the most mindless gameplay, and sometimes I'm cool with that, but it's really the story that just doesn't hold me. I like the fact that you get to see so many characters you know, and that each world is so varied, but the dialogue is terrible and totally pulls me out of it. Not all games are supposed to be believable, but I think the tone of that game being for such a young audience just doesn't appeal to me. I miss the age I was supposed to be to love it. When Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, I gave it a fair shake, and I played probably 10 hours, mostly because I wanted to get to Frozen's world. And yeah, I was a Frozen addict at the time, don't at me. The gameplay until then was interesting, then it wasn't, and it got repetitive, and it took too long to do anything cool. And the pill was so hard to swallow when I did get to Arendelle, and it looked awful compared to the rest of the rather gorgeous game. It was like a shot-for-shot cover of the movie with voice direction that sounded like it was recorded on an iPhone, with nothing to do in the world but follow a linear path. So that killed my vibe entirely, and I quit just like that. I guess I will never learn my lesson though, cause I might still try to play Kingdom Hearts 2 one day. We'll see how that goes. In 2011 at a tiny Toys R Us, I grabbed a $20 copy of Skate 2. I've kept up with the world of skateboarding ever since. The skate games were monumental to my teen development, informing my sense of clothing, the teams I loved, the pros I followed, and so much more. It got me playing online with some friends at school when I had relatively fallen off that track for a while. I'm still not big on online play, really. It's likely I've played all 3 skate games for hundreds of hours. But most people would say that the Tony Hawk games are their gateways into skating. Actually, an entire generation of skaters would say that. I could never, though. I own so many of the pro skater games, and the only one I actually like is Underground, with its fun yet grounded story of rivalry and the customization system that kept me entertained. I don't know, even that one I have not completed. It's the gameplay, and I guess that's sort of a running theme for the games I end up dropping. I've played Pro 3, 4, Underground 1 and 2, Ride and Shred, which is a yikes, I know. And most recently, I played the remakes of Pro 1 and 2. The floaty air tricks can be fun, and it's definitely supposed to be a series that's arcade magic, and I think it nails that. But that's not what I want in my skate game. I want to have that wildly real weight of the skate series, learning how to move the right stick so I could do a laser flip and time it just right to get up a tall ledge. With the Tony Hawk games, it's just about hitting a button in a direction and chaining together the most outlandish lines possible. But even still, I do understand that there are very few series as iconic and important as Pro Skater. And I mean, Pro Skater 4 was my first foray into skate culture, and it introduced a lot to me. There has never once been a game as disappointing to me as Resident Evil Operation Raccoon City. To this day, it is the game I hate more than all other games, and yeah, hate is a strong word, but I mean it. I was around 11 or 12 when it came out, and I saved every penny I had to pre-order the special edition off Amazon. It was huge that my dad even let me pre-order a game. I even sacrificed my quesadilla at Grandma's house in order to get home so I could play it. Quesadilla time was big, man. That's when I got to watch Alien or The Fly, but instead I went home. I had just come off the high of Resident Evil 5, and yeah, I said hi. It was my gateway into the series, and I will always love it for that. I also got my cousin to get a copy to play with me, so we downloaded it, and waited since PS3 downloads took ages. And once we got in, we were just like, and checked the box again that only came with 2 patches and a steelbook for like $80. Video games have always been way too expensive. We picked superpowered people who actually didn't know how to hide, or aim, or do cover, or fight, or talk, or do much of anything. I still remember screaming about how much I hated every second of the game, to the point that my cousin just disassociated until he inevitably stopped playing with me after we beat it once. The campaign is also too long for how narratively empty it is, on top of the fact that the game just doesn't work most of the time. Like, you can get shot through everything while you yourself can't hit anything. I've thought about forcing myself and some friends to struggle through it again for a video. I don't really know if I have the strength for such pain. It is the worst Resident Evil game without a doubt, yet I know there's a dedicated group of people online who absolutely love playing it as like a guilty pleasure. I wish I could be them. I wish I had a multiplayer Resident Evil game that I actually enjoyed that I haven't played 900 times. And yeah, I've played Resident Evil 5 on every single platform, 100%, all trophies at least 900 times with tons of important people who have come and gone in my life. It would mean so much if they made a co-op game that I felt gravitated towards, but that just doesn't seem to be happening anytime soon. It's a little awkward to call myself a Sonic fan when the first game I was ever old enough to play was 06. I had convinced my grandma to get me it too, knowing she didn't have a lot of money. It meant a ton that she could even do that, but what a disappointment. I remember being nauseous as she watched me play for only 10 minutes, flying off the stage every 20 seconds. So that game didn't sell me on Sonic, but Sonic X, Underground, and the Mega Collection sure did. On top of the fact that I had a friend in school who was obsessed with the Wii games and showed me how to draw Sonic in Shadow. It's been quite a long time since I've loved a Sonic game, and unfortunately, Sonic Frontiers didn't tickle me the way it apparently did for most other fans. When I was at the Sonic Symphony last year, people were going bonkers from Frontiers music. Seeing that audience reaction kind of reminded me that the game even came out, and that I had played it. Pre-release, I feel like I kept hearing people equating it to something of an Adventure 3. And no, it's definitely not Adventure 3 in any way. The story isn't bad. I sometimes liked it, but with that being said, I only got like 3 hours in before losing interest entirely. Something about a drab Sonic world takes away the magic of the franchise. I know that it isn't that way the whole time, but there wasn't enough there for me, even though it played pretty decently and fast-paced, which I really missed in my Sonic. In the future, I would likely give it another try, but I'm not convinced I'll ever complete it. I'd rather play Adventure 2, Heroes, or Unleashed. I know that's a weird mix, but I said what I said. Period. Soul Hackers 2. It's a game. I put about 20 hours into it and never finished. It's not very memorable, which is quite the feat for an Atlus game, really. There's not a song I can think of, or a name of a character for that matter. The story doesn't come to mind, the world doesn't ring any bells except for the bar that looked kinda cool. It wins an award for being the most average SMT-related game I have ever played. I thought it would be a new thing, totally divorced from the Persona-style gameplay and world that I could sink my teeth into. I really enjoyed the OG Soul Hackers, like the Saturn one, even if I had to fight for my life to use Google Translate every second. I also liked the 3DS Soul Hackers. It felt very Ghost in the Shell coded, which I thought was sick. This one didn't feel like anything. It has a mysterious angle that I didn't care about, and characters that could have felt interesting if they were maybe in a different game. It's really hard to explain what's wrong with Soul Hackers 2, but I think the biggest issue is that it really is that forgettable. In one word, it's generic, and that really stinks. I really did not like Fire Emblem Engage. This is probably the saddest one for me on the list. Looking back on it, my expectations going in were way too high. See, when 3000s came out, I had absolutely zero interest. I wasn't into strategy games, I'd never played a Fire Emblem game in the series beforehand, and I didn't really know anything about anything. The person I was seeing at the time was obsessed, constantly watching the Treehouse updates about every house, the story, and all the updates pre-released. The only thing that even slightly interested me was that the Officer's Academy was going to be slightly Persona-ish, and that Terra Platte was a head of one of the houses. Even though we got the game right when it was released, I didn't end up playing it until COVID hit. And when I did, I played through the Black Eagles Edelgard route within 3 days, completely swept up in it, and put over 500 hours into the game doing everything humanly possible. For our anniversary, I got us a shared copy of the special edition, which was huge money at the time. Yeah, I got that back in the breakup, thank God. Post 3 Houses, I played every other game released in the US. All of them. And Fire Emblem has become one of my absolute favorite series to date. So with all that love, and those huge hopes that Engage would be just as good if not better than 3 Houses, the wind was totally knocked out of my sails. I put around 20 hours in, and I just was not feeling it. The characters were whatever, feeling more like the writing style of Fates, which is on the lower end for me. And the gameplay was good, but not as engaging as I hoped. I think part of that came from feeling a little iffy about using the powers of well-known characters that I had already recently experienced. Engage is sort of a fanfic game, which I can get behind, but I didn't think that I had the nostalgia, like, it was almost necessary to feel that nostalgia for getting into this one. It's definitely an interesting idea, having legacy characters. It just felt too big. I didn't buy that all these old characters somehow fit into this world and rolled with it. I'm the most likely to go back to this game out of the others on the list, so at least there's that, though. I definitely have more games I've dropped that I had high hopes for, so maybe one day I'll come back around to this topic, but for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching.
We do not team up with fucking elves.